Hey guys, what's going on? Rocket Cat here, back at you with some more Moonbreaker content. This time we are talking about Cargorun, specifically the bosses. Cargorun is a PvE game mode that basically is like a roguelite where you go through and do one run and things get harder and harder and you get cool pump-ups for your troops and stuff. And we'll be talking about all the bosses involved in those. I'm pretty stoked. Let's get started. So before we launch into the bosses themselves, I want to take a quick second to explain how bosses evolve over the rounds. In this example, this is from a real Cargorun that I did. We start out in the first round with Yin Gawshua Sway, and she's just basic. So she has her normal attack, her normal health. Once we get into round 2, they get the added bonus of this extra chance to crit. This bonus gets carried over to the next boss, Ekti Overcharge, who has the extra chance to crit and also gains 5 extra HP. If we look at the round 4, they still have the chance to crit, they still have the extra 5 HP, and they also now have Pummel. Bonuses are retained. Once we get to round 5, we have Acidmaker Matek with a new keyword, fast, extra health, extra crit, as well as this added, reduced ability cost. So I think I'm not sure what happened here, how Pummel got dropped off. This might be due to Acidmaker being maybe considered a primary spellcaster. I'm not sure, or it might be a bug. If you happen to know, please let me know in the comments. So this is just to explain how bosses get pumped up over time, because some bosses do get much more threatening once they do get some pumps. Some bosses are not such a threat at the beginning. Okay, let's get started with the bosses. First up, we have Acidmaker Matek, a melee Cholek boss that restores 1 health when it kills a rival and has a fairly brutal AoE ability, Acid Cloud, which deals 4 damage to all units in an area. Note that here and throughout this video, the health and damage values of the bosses will fluctuate a little bit since they do get more base health and damage over time. The health starts at 20, but I'm honestly not sure what the base values are for all the bosses. Usually it is enough to make you cry in the later rounds. I'm usually not too worried about melee bosses, and Acidmaker Matek is no exception. But like all melee bosses, if he does get fast and lots of base damage and or pummel, then you do need to respect him. His ability is strong in the early rounds, and you should absolutely be careful about clumping up your units too much, lest you find yourself running out of too much crew too early. But since the damage numbers for Acid Cloud don't scale over time, like over the rounds, it's really not a huge threat in the later rounds where your units are generally beefier. Overall, Acidmaker gets a threat level medium from me. Like all bosses, you do need to respect him, but he's definitely not the toughest boss you'll face. Aegys Weapons Array is a Methodori boss with no basic attack. Its passive, Distortion Field, reads, Aegys Weapons Array and allies in range are 4% harder to hit, not fully implemented. I haven't really noticed any issues with accuracy, so I'm assuming this isn't working right now, or 4% is just way too low a buff to notice. Its special ability, Detach Crab, creates a cannon crab, which is a construct that is basically a proximity turret that attacks you whenever you get in range. Once they do get their attack off, they'll scuttle away to a nearby position. Aegys is definitely the easiest boss, and you can usually just snipe down its crew and farm up as much cargo as you can for later rounds. The fact that it doesn't get a basic attack means you're not really worried about your captain getting insta-sniped like the other bosses. Also, the cannon crabs at the moment don't get any improvements in later rounds, but they absolutely should to make this boss any kind of threat. There's also the fact that it tends to chill in the backlines with its cannons while sending its crew forward, so you can usually just wait for it to send its crew in piecemeal and dominate. Aegys Weapons Array is, for me, threat level chill crab enjoyer. Eventually, however, I'm sure the AI on this boss will improve and present a greater challenge in the future. CC Hammersmith is a smuggler boss with a passive that deals 2 damage to any unit it collides with. I'm assuming the initials CC stands for crowd control because of its second passive, Hammer Time, stunning all units around it after hitting. Note that this does not seem to proc off the damage from the first passive, which doesn't seem to be considered as a hit even if the animation makes it look like a basic attack. Especially if he gets fast, you need to be extremely cautious that he's never going to be able to stun your captain, or else you're in for a pretty rough time. He also really sucks to go up against as Exterior, as unless Exterior is ready to solo him in one round, it's not going to be pretty. Hammersmith is one of the 2 melee bosses that actually earns a threat level high from me. Dimmy Snool is a smuggler boss with a ranged attack and a passive that makes him fast if any rival is immobilized. This is a fairly decent passive, but an irrelevant one if the boss gets the fast upgrade naturally anyway. The main challenge of this unit is its other passive, Mucus Cannon, which immobilizes any unit he hits for 2 turns. This is a very hindering boss, especially if you're running Exterior, who can get rooted in place and completely wrecked with no chance to respond, unless somehow his crew can carry him through the win. Throw in some damage pumps, extra crit, rapid fire, whatever on this boss, and you've got yourself a serious challenge on your hands. All told, Dimmy Snool is for me threat level high. Pretty much all the ranged captains are going to have this as a baseline threat level, because ranged attacks can always come out of nowhere and will generally one-shot all of your crew and seriously injure your captain. Ekti Overcharge is a boss from the currently unreleased Yi culture. We don't know anything about this culture yet, but I'm really digging the aesthetic and look forward to hearing some more about it. Ekti's passive, Unstable, reduces its accuracy by 40%, which, thank goodness, because Ekti gets very huge very fast thanks to its active ability, Electrolyze, which permanently gives an ally in range +2 attack. Currently, Ekti only really uses this ability on itself, and if you also happen to get extra crit or rapid fire on this boss, this gets out of hand extremely fast. Often, defeating Ekti requires throwing crew to absorb its shots, and Torian is particularly good at this if you happen to get her, since Torian's passive gives a base 20% chance for Ekti to hit. You can also try sticking Fate Twister on Ekti, which can also be very helpful. All in all, Ekti is a threat level brutal for me. Not much else to say. Good luck on this boss.
Laser Squad! Can't hide your bod from the Laser Squad! Grenadier!
Oh, sweet, sweet Laser Squad. Laser Squad is a smuggler boss that may attack 2 extra times per turn, and when it destroys a target, it deals 3 damage to all units nearby. Laser Squad with rapid fire attacks a whopping 6 times in a turn, and with damage pumps and extra crit, this can be enough to one-shot your super tanky 30 health armored captain that you love so much. This is basically like going up against Ekti, but instead of having some initial turns of reprieve, Laser Squad hits its max power from turn 1, one-shotting anything it looks at in later rounds. Also, compared to Ekti, who has an accuracy penalty, Laser Squad is just All told, Laser Squad gets threat level Laser Squad from me, which is to say, this boss is beyond brutal. Now, the devs have mentioned that apparently Laser Squad is going to be slightly tweaked down for EA launch, which pour one out for Laser Squad because this boss was so much fun. And I think it'll still be fun, but man, what an arse. To defeat Laser Squad, you'll generally want some pumped up tricks, and you usually need to sack a bunch of crew. And the threat of gating Laser Squad in later rounds is usually what makes it pretty necessary to preserve as much crew as possible as you can in the earlier rounds. I've heard a lot of people complain about this boss, and I've actually personally never lost to him because I do treat him with the utmost respect and proceed with all the caution I can muster. That said, the first time I went up against him, which was the clip earlier, I've discovered very quickly how powerful he was. But I still managed to squeak out the win on 2 HP, which I was very pleased with. If Laser Squad is giving you troubles, stay tuned because we do have plenty of Cargorun content on the docket to help you get you through your run. Yes! Get wrecked, Laser Squad! And now it's time for our interlude, where I let you know to please like this video if you're enjoying it, and subscribe if you would like some more Moonbreaker content. We have more Cargorun content, more PvP content, variety content coming up for Moonbreaker, so please stay tuned to the channel. Rain Shingtang is a melee boss from the Shen culture, another unreleased culture that we don't really know anything about, but I'm excited to learn more. Rain's attack is equal to his unspent cinder, which means that his attack will be from anywhere from 1 to 10 depending on the cinder pool, and on your turns it will be max 3 depending on how much cinder the boss is stored. His passive, Let It Rain, deals 1 damage for each unspent cinder to a random rival in range and line of sight, anywhere from 0 to 10 cinder, dishing out as damage. Rain is particularly tough when you don't understand his mechanics. And I did fall into the trap once of lulling myself into a false sense of security, seeing Rain with 3 damage on my turn, moving my captain too close, and then getting wrecked by 8 damage and pummel. That said, as a melee boss, Rain for me is threat level medium. Once you understand the mechanic and learn to respect it, it just still doesn't come close to the threat level of ranged bosses. But you do have to absolutely watch out, especially if Rain has fast and lots of damage pumps and or pummel. So do proceed with caution and make sure to always check the boss tooltips at the start of a match to see what modifiers they have received. Tilepi, no, that's Mr. Tilepi to you, is a melee Cholek boss with the Enjoy Garden skill, which restores 1 health to him for each Ursix Scattervine in range. Meanwhile, his ability costs 0 cinder and lets him create a Scattervine. Tilepi thus tends to chill and deploy a bunch of Scattervines. Indeed, he usually makes Scattervines way too much and thus tends to have less actual crew capacity than normal, making him not such a threat. All in all, Mr. Tilepi gets threat level farming simulator from me. His AI kind of struggles, and even though he's melee, he does tend to chill on the backlines, wiggling around enjoying his Scattervine garden, letting you pick off his crew with relative ease. Like any boss, you should nevertheless respect any damage pumps, fast, extra crit, pummel, etc., and make sure you aren't playing too carelessly or you can find yourself having a rough round. Nevertheless, along with Aegis weapons array, Mr. Tilepi lets you farm up cargo and get your units ready for later rounds. Vora, Bird of Prey, is a ranged Methodori boss with airborne and fast built in. He has a passive, Elevated Shot, which lets him ignore soft cover so long as he is not immobile. This passive means he's pretty likely to hit whatever he wants, and it's usually pretty hard to reliably immobilize him for very long to disable this passive, and indeed there's no telling whether you'll even have any immobilization in your roster. But really it's not the passive that makes Vora strong, it's just the airborne and fast keywords on a ranged model. This gives Vora a huge threat radius, and once Vora has bonuses like rapid fire, extra crit, high base damage, etc., he becomes an absolute monster. He is thus a boss that gets way stronger in later rounds than he is in earlier rounds, and honestly I sometimes find myself more afraid of Vora in later rounds than I am of Laser Squad once he's pumped up, since it can be basically impossible to find a safe place for your captain to avoid an insta-kill, and you do need to rely on throwing as much crew as possible to bait his attacks. All in all, Vora gets a threat level brutal from me, but with enough pumps he can easily be one of the toughest bosses in the game. That said, I would say that his threat level is lower in the earlier rounds before he gets those pumped up tricks. Last up, we have Yin Gawshua Sway, another melee boss of the unreleased Shen culture. Yin's passive restores 1 health to allies in range every turn, but the true power of Yin comes with her active ability, Mind Control, which takes control of a damaged rival crew in range with a 75% chance of success, though honestly I haven't seen it fail. As a melee boss, you don't really need to worry about her basic attack all that much, but like usual, you should respect any pumps she might get. But really the main threat of Yin is her Mind Control ability. Presumably the devs played XCOM and really loved getting their units mind controlled and really wanted to spread the love here. Note that once the unit is mind controlled, you will get it back in your roster for later rounds if you don't kill it, but manage to kill Yin. Killing it, however, means the unit will not be in your roster for the next round. I actually haven't fully tested this, but that's at least what I assume. Yin is a boss that really influences the approach that you take to the entire Cargorun, and because of this, she gets a threat level high from me. I think some players would put her higher, but really once you figure her out, she's not that bad. The easiest way to deal with her is to crank up your captain to a level where your captain can just deal with her and any crew without needing to deploy any units. But sometimes this isn't possible, and the solution is often just to use ranged units that don't intend on getting anywhere close to her. If you really have no other option, you can toss her units that you don't really care about and don't really do much on their own. A viewer of the channel suggested that I make like a summary graphic at the end. Vado, if you're watching, thanks for the suggestion. And so I've done that here, just in case you forget any of the ratings that I've given. I've switched it up a little bit. Laser Squad gets brutal plus 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 instead of threat level Laser Squad and so on. I've also added a few pluses here and there. But yeah, this is basically the summary. Hope you guys enjoy this graphic. And that, my friends, was every single Cargorun boss in the game, rated and explained. If you like this video, please remember to like and subscribe, and we'll be coming back with more Cargorun soon, and next time we're going to be talking about all the relics.